The GTI is here, finally! Last year, we made a video on an airstrip in the countryside of Sao Paulo saying that the GTI was back, and now it's here. The 350 owners who sold out the first batch in just a few hours, paying 430,000 reais. Many people on the Brazilian automotive internet were upset because they misunderstood Volkswagen's strategy. I explained it in that video, and I'll repeat it here in case you missed it. In Brazil, Volkswagen is capitalizing on all the brand equity that the GTI brand has. The GTI is legendary, it's a legend in Brazil, it's highly desired. Any guy my age dreamed of having a GTI. So Volkswagen isn't just selling a car, they're selling a whole ownership experience. We're here at Velocitta at this Volkswagen Legends event where more than 80 of these 350 owners chose to receive their car. Experts here on the track, so the guy will get his car and head out speeding on the Velocitta circuit. There are things, my friend, that money can't buy, and some things money can buy, like this kind of thing. Relationships, you see, go way beyond just the car, the product. This batch of 350 has arrived, and they've already opened the second one for the same 430,000 reais or 445,000 reais if you choose the leather seats. Tip, if you're getting a GTI, you have to get the plaid seats. And I can say this here without any fear, it's going to sell out in a matter of hours too. Volkswagen is handling this with a very smart strategy. For example, only one car per CPF or CNPJ, and you have to already own another sports car from the Volkswagen Group. I'm eligible, right, with my GTS, so who knows, I might even send a check, precisely to avoid speculation to prevent people from flipping the car. Really, whoever has a GTI MK8 in Brazil is guaranteed to have an exclusive product. If you haven't seen that video, let's take a little look here at the GTI. Let's talk a bit. On the technical side, the key is really beautiful, and under the hood we have the evolved EA888, right? Here we have the engine with 245 horsepower and 38 kilogram-meters of torque. This means it has significantly better performance numbers than the Jetta GLI, which when you analyze it rationally, offers very similar specs for a much lower price. Because it's not a GTI, guys. It doesn't have all that platform and all that history attached to it. So here, 245 horsepower, 38 kilogram-meters of torque, 0 to 100 in 6.1 seconds, but I'll tell you, in the real world, the car actually feels even faster than that. And it has sharper handling than the Jetta. You can see my hair is a bit messy here because I've already been driving fast. It's helmet hair, but look how cool that is. Look, the start button keeps pulsing here, nudging you. Go ahead, start it up, let's hit the gas. We started it up, and then the Mark 8 has an upgraded dashboard, right? Especially when we compare it to the Jetta itself, right? Yeah, I really like it when the navigation system recognizes the racetrack layout as a route. That's really cool. We have different cluster themes here. Look, let me go back. But the GTI deserves this one, with the tachometer right there, fully highlighted, you know, ready to accelerate. The plaid seat, just as it should be, the 7-speed gearbox with the little lever here, it's the Porsche 911 style. Remember, you put it in sport mode here. I've already made emotional appeals about this. Don't forget to also put the gearbox in S mode. Yeah, with launch control, right, I think this 6.1 number is pretty conservative. We accelerated not only the GTI, which is the first time we've accelerated the GTI on a track, right? At that event last year, we just did a few hard pulls on the airstrip, right? Not on a racetrack, but it was really cool. We also had the opportunity to jump straight from the GTI to the GLI and also to the Tiguan. Tiguan isn't a Volkswagen legend, right? You see the Volkswagen Legends there, but it's a car with 272 horsepower with the EA888 Evo 5 engine, right? So it's an SUV whose brand positioning is really focused on offering distinctive handling. So we drove all three of them in a row. Put on your helmet, let's hit the gas, and then we'll come back here for our final conclusions. Let's get into the mean black GTI. I'm a fan of the white GTI, right? But if the exterior color isn't my favorite, the interior is just right, you know? A GTI has to have plaid seats, stop messing around. Let's get comfortable here. Look, the little button shining here is calling us, urging us to accelerate. Activated. The Mark 8 dashboard is beautiful, isn't it? Ficou. It has an interesting balance of technology and tradition, doesn't it? When you look at it, even with the big screens and everything, you instantly recognize this as a Golf, right? There's no doubt about it. Let's set up the driving modes here. You see people complain about Volkswagen age. Look, There's a new button on the dashboard. Before, you had to use the menu, but now it's right here on the mode button. Sport! That's all we want for this moment. Let's have some fun here with our big 7-speed DSG. I'm going to put the transmission in sport mode here because, as I recently said in an emotional clip, I made an emotional appeal to Volkswagen, to BMW. When you put it in sport, just put the transmission in sport too. Sport mode is automatic. I want all its features. Using the paddles switches it to manual mode, right? Now let's wait for our driver. From the safety car, those who have been around for a while remember, right? Safety car is a term that appeared much later. Back then it was called the pace car. The beast wants out of the cage here. I found the voice of our glorious instructor up front to be a bit sedated. Look, he immediately silenced the critics. And then the GTI does what it does best, right? The front end pushes a lot. When you come to play like this in gear and look at the rear too, did you see during trail braking how it's willing to rotate to help you? Look. Now, Agres, did you see? The GLI too, there in the chicanes, the stability control part, right, has evolved a lot. In the past, the controls used to kill the cars a lot. Now, the electronics, you see it meters it out, it doesn't cut everything, right? It gradually reduces and does calculations that you could even say are better than what a human foot does, right? Because it's calculating thousands of readings per second there, so it gives you exactly the power, just like an electric car, right? In the past, the first thing you had to do at these events, right? People would say, you can't turn it off, we don't turn it off. Look, the rear is sliding there. We also don't turn it off, so we don't cause problems for everyone, but it's impressive how things have evolved and how it's no longer a default thing, like, I'm going to turn it off because it'll kill the car. It doesn't kill it anymore. We have a chicane here in the middle of the straight. Bam, let's use the pedals just a little here. Woohoo! It's impressive how responsive the rear is now. It's a front-wheel drive car, right? People, the biggest criticism, let's say, from the automotive internet, missed the line, man, from the Brazilian automotive internet. Yeah, regarding the GTI's Arrival, it costs $430,000. For example, it's at a similar price level to the BMW M135i, which is an all-wheel drive car. 300 horsepower, right? It kind of came with the price of a Golf R, let's put it that way. Yeah, and let's wait a little bit for everyone to get here. Yeah, that can be a little misleading because actually the Golf R, of course, is a car you take to Nürburgring. You want lap times, so it makes perfect sense to upgrade to a Golf R, which, by the way, breaking news. The buzz here at the event is that, look, it's not ruled out, you know, a batch of Golf R coming, given the response the GTI got, right? Because what's the deal? Like I always tell you, the manufacturers listened. They really listened to the consumer. The consumer is the guy who actually buys, not the guy who just complains on the internet. It's the guy who buys the car. And certainly based on the feedback from these GTI owners here in Brazil, these guys are telling Volkswagen, hey, bring some R models here and we'll buy them too. So the demand has already come up. Look, let's brake hard here. It has grip, right? But when the grip runs out, it's progressive, you know? The car slides. It stayed in M mode here. We kind of got stuck in fourth gear here. Then I missed the apex there. Let's go back to sport mode. Now we're good. Look at that. It's beautiful to see our instructor's driving style here. But what was I talking about? That might give the impression that the Golf R isn't a track car. Actually, the Golf GTI isn't a track car, the R is the track car. Actually, the GTI is very rewarding on the track, right? Precisely because it has that chassis balance. It's not a super light car, it's a 1,450 kilo car, right? Cars have gotten a lot heavier, safety and all that. I wonder if you can go flat out through Mata here. You can, and then some. But it's very balanced, right? So when it starts to lose grip up front, look, when the front loses grip, you lift off the throttle, turn the wheel, and the front bites back, right? So the grip limit isn't that high, and then, yes, you're looking at the Golf R, if that's your goal. But that's the thing with the GTI, right? Nothing that a little upgrade can't fix, right? This car here with the D-Link Apex King or some other high grip tire, you know, really soft for the track, I'd say you don't even need to change the wheels. I changed the wheels for the looks, you know, I think this generation of the GTI can pull off and deserves bigger wheels. But I think if you put a softer, grippier tire on it for the track, the GTI becomes a great toy to have fun with on a track day. And mainly, right, that's always been the great merit of the GTI, going to the track day with relative comfort, you know. Velocitta is here about 180 kilometers away, about 2 hours from Sao Paulo, and coming from Sao Paulo to Velocitta in a GTI doesn't punish you, right? It's a very pleasant car to use on the road and to live with day to day, very comfortable. And then when you come to the track, it gives you like adrenaline, a smile on your face. Could it have a manual transmission? I think it deserved a small batch of manual cars. Hey, Volkswagen. I took a page from Ford's book, right? They brought the Mustang, very similar strategies, right? Created this community of enthusiasts, and then later brought a batch of manuals that, man, sold out just like that. So I think that, I don't know what the next step is, if it's going to be bringing the Golf R, or I'm suggesting here to bring a manual. But the fact is that Volkswagen got it, right? You can see here the Velocitta steering wheel all decked out, this Legends platform here, and even the differentiation that Volkswagen has by having a lineup available. Sports cars, right? Cars that really give you pleasure to drive compared to the Chinese competition, for example. You can be sure that this line of sports cars from Volkswagen will continue to be very well taken care of by the brand here in Brazil. So we will keep having new things. Whether it will be R, whether it will be a manual GTI, we don't know, but they will definitely come. And then one of those cool things, right, that only being an automotive journalist lets you do, which is to jump straight from a GTI to a GLI on the same track at the same time. At the same temperature, and being able to compare the two. I've already put it in sport mode here. The button is the old school one, right? A real plastic button, not the capacitive button like in the GLI. You feel a little excitement in your heart when you switch to sport mode. The cluster stays blue here, just like a Polo cluster. The GLI also got a nice interior upgrade with this refresh. The leather dashboard looks really cool. I put the gear in. Look, if you move it, bring the gear and go, it goes to D. You have to pull it back a bit more for it to be an S. Let's turn this camera here. No, it was already turned, man. It's set up differently now. Yeah, let's go. Yeah, and what's really interesting is that the Jetta GLI, you might think, man, it's going to be a heavier car. The Jetta GLI weighs just 1 kilo more than the Golf. Yeah, because with the hatchback, you need to add more things to keep the same rigidity, right? So the Jetta doesn't have a weight advantage. It's going to handle differently because it has a longer wheelbase, right? The weight distribution also changes, right? The rear end is heavier, see? The back wants to turn in more eagerly, let's put it that way. Put your seatbelt on immediately. The brakes have reduced power. The pedal pressure here, the way the pedal behaves, you know, the pedal it's softer, you know. The brake pad isn't as racing focused as in the GTI. I turned off stability control here, since that's possible in the Jetta. It's gonna mess us up a lot if someone slams on the brakes hard here unexpectedly. Yeah, here for sure. It's gonna mess us up a lot if he cuts in. It feels like it steers more from the rear, so to speak. Yeah, and we have 14 less horsepower, right? It's 231 here compared to 245 in the GTI. But mainly we have almost 3 kg less torque, right? It's 38 in the GTI, 35 here. That's what makes the biggest difference on the track. The glorious instructor here is a bit more daring towards the end, huh? Look how the front end goes wide, right? He puts the power down and lets it go, right? And then there's that thing, you get to the straight and give it a stretch, right? Look, the brake really is quite different. But yeah, the behavior is pretty similar, that progressive feel, right? The fact that when you feel the grip is gone, it slides progressively on all four. Very similar positioning, right? Especially since Volkswagen positioned these two products very differently in Brazil. Yeah, the Jetta GLI is still a relatively rational purchase, right, in its price range. And the GTI really is a gem. It's something that comes with a whole exclusivity-focused ownership program. When you analyze it rationally, right, the Jetta GLI becomes, it seems right, an even more attractive deal. You look at it, man, 270 grand for a Jetta GLI, which is 160 less than the GTI. To have very similar performance, right? A spec sheet that's very similar, it becomes a pretty attractive deal. He went crazy thinking I'd hit the destructor's car. Yeah, like I said, the GTI, right? It's a car that's gonna have more It doesn't punish you on the way to velocity and delivers the fun here. The Jetta, I would say, punishes you even less, and you can still carry big luggage, bring more people, right? The trunk space here is the car's main advantage, right? So it has the GTI look, right? All the charisma, especially since the name GLI has a cool history in the United States, right? Several generations of Jetta GLI existed there, but in Brazil, it's a much newer model. So it doesn't really have the same, what they call in English, curb appeal, right? Which is the appeal when people see the car parked there. Yeah, but it really is a really interesting toy, right? Save the sedans, save the sports cars, right? It's the kind of car that's really rare in the Brazilian market, and it's really cool. And as I made clear there, right, at the end of the GTI test drive, Volkswagen realized that selling emotion, not just Volkswagen, right? We can mention, for example, Toyota. With the Gazoo strategy, even Ford itself is repositioning in Brazil as a much more aspirational and emotional brand, right? It's gonna be what? One of the, right, not the only one, of course, but it's gonna be one of the main differentiators for traditional brands in the face of the Chinese avalanche. Let me try one more time, buddy, to make it fair. Guys, with the chicanes in the middle of the straight, the top speed numbers here aren't that impressive. Box, 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 and there's still the final round. I'm curious, flooring the Tiguan with 272 horsepower on the track should be surprising. Let's go. Final round, here we go with the Tiguan with the Evo 5 engine, right? 272 horsepower, also a 2.0 turbo. But in case you've never noticed this, it's the same 35 kilogram meters of torque, right? The EA888 Evo 5 focused on getting more power and kept the same torque as the previous generation. The same torque as the Jetta GLI, for example, the same 35 kilogram meters. What's cool here is the button, right? We choose the mode, the driving mode, with this selector here in the middle. When it comes to the interior, the Tiguan is a step ahead, right? Let's try to put the power down here with all-wheel drive. It's Volkswagen, right? It's a car with interesting steering behavior. I ended up at the back of the pack in this last round, so now it's going to be more of a cruise and less hard driving, which also has to do with the car's personality, right? I'm trying to lower the seat a bit here. I feel really high up, even with the seat at its lowest, especially after getting out of the GTI or GLI. And of course, it's a much heavier car, right? About 1,800 and something kilos, right? That's over 300 kilos heavier. So yeah, it's a different proposal. What we can say with complete confidence is that within this mid-size SUV universe, it is, and the urge to overtake the buddy up ahead. So let's do this. I'm gonna flash my lights here because otherwise we won't even be able to take a slightly more spirited corner. Yeah. Dynamic. All right, let's go. Let's see here. Whoa! He's way above, right, in terms of this kind of behavior. Look how the brakes are easy to modulate. The front is very responsive. I turned off the control and it put the power down. It's because we have all-wheel drive, right? So yeah, it's really different within the segment. Let's say that the handling is one of this car's biggest differentiators in the segment, let's put it that way, to sum up the reasoning. Power. Look, giving it a little stretch here. Our Tiguan, man, Tiguan, right? Tiger with iguana. Look, I'm even gonna push Joselito hard here in the S. Someone took out a cone. Whoa, man, I'm gonna have to pull away from my buddy here so I don't crash. We struggled with traffic in the Tiguan. So, let's get to the final thoughts about the GTI and the Volkswagen legends in the national market. Final thoughts, there's no way around it. The GTI is all about charisma. And the GTI is all about charisma because the GTI has heritage. You can see a little bit of the Pointer GTI back there in the corner. There's the GTI Mark IV track day that Volkswagen made, the engineering team made back then. The car has a lot of appeal because it has a lot of history. More than 400,000 cars have already been sold with the GTI badge in Brazil. Adding them all up, right? Gold GTI, Parity GTI, Pointer GTI, everything we've had here. The Golf GTI Mark VII and Mark III themselves that we had before, right? But what's more interesting? How does the GTI live off of this to this day? Of course, that's a big part of the car's appeal. But, for example, I turned the wheel here so we could get this 3/4 rear view with the 18-inch wheel showing. Man, the steering wheel goes from lock to lock in 2.1 turns. It's progressive steering. The steering wheel is really quick. That's what makes the car so fun, so versatile, you know. Dynamic on the track and enjoyable to drive every day. So Volkswagen really delivers all that heritage and charisma through engineering, with a product that is, yes, very, very appealing. Could it cost less? It could, right? Maybe Volkswagen could bring unlimited batches, right? Not have limited batches actually, just sell the GTI there, let's say, in the price range of the GR Yaris, 350,000 reais, they would sell about 1,000 cars per year. But as I always say, the people at Volkswagen in Brazil are very smart. If they're not doing that, right, selling 1,000 cars at 350, you make more than selling 300 at 430. If they're selling 300 at 430, it's because they have access to about 300. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments, would you choose the GTI or the BMW M135? Another car that just showed up here on the channel with a similar size and price range. I still think the charisma of the GTI, when we look at the reverse medium hatch, the medium verse, the hot hatch verse, is something really, really, really hard to compete with. And you, let us know in the comments. Thanks a lot for watching, and a big hug to you all. Time extended is a little bit of extra content at the end. I went through all the Brazilian market GTIs that are on display here. Through all generations of Golf GTI, several that we didn't have in Brazil, which are on display here in the pit garage. So now it's DVD extras. Thanks a lot, glad you watched, and a big hug to you all. A succession of slaps in the face. Yes, my friends, it's not every day here in mighty Brazil that you get to see all generations of the Golf GTI. After all, we didn't have it, right? We didn't have the Mark II in Brazil. We didn't have the Mark I in Brazil. We had the Mark IV, but anyway, we're at the Volkswagen Legends event where we came to drive the Mark VIII, right? The Mark VIII.5 to be precise. The Golf GTI that you've already seen in the debut video here on the channel, we drove it on a track set up at an airport back then. But it wasn't Velocitta. It wasn't a proper track, really, where we can really test the limits of the car and show you what it's truly capable of doing on a track. It's a really cool event happening here, Volkswagen Legends. What's going on here? The handover, right? When the GTI launched, it faced controversy over its price and more. Volkswagen's commercial strategy was made very clear. They wanted to treat the GTI as a very exclusive product, and not just a matter of exclusivity, right? It's a platform that gives you access to various experiences, and this is exactly one of them. They're handing over the batch of 350 cars. This Mark V here, just a quick interlude. Yeah, it was released when I was living in the United States. With those wheels, this unit doesn't have the phone dial wheels here. The two-door with the white phone dial wheels, for me, is the most beautiful GTI of all time. But then, more than 80 owners out of the 350 chose to have the delivery here on the track at Velocity. So the guy is going to receive his GTI Mark VIII, like this one here, look. And he'll already be able to speed up on the track, feel what the car is capable of doing, with all the safety, with all the guidance from professional drivers. Anyway, a truly unique experience for the guy who's putting a sports car like this in his garage, and the second batch has already been announced as well. It's coming. It's already available at the same prices, $430 and $445 with the optional leather interior. Following the same strategy as before, right? It's one car per personal or company tax ID, and the buyer has to own a sports car from the Volkswagen Group. Taking this moment before we head to the track, Volkswagen do Brazil. Why didn't we get the GTI Mark I and II in Brazil? Because we didn't have the Golf here. We had Brazilian models instead. So we had GTIs, unique GTIs with a very Brazilian flavor, right? Cars like the Pointer GTI, which really became a real unicorn. Where do you see a Pointer GTI these days? Our greatest icon, of course, is the Square Gold GTI. For me, in this little Chinese generation here, it has the most beautiful look of all. This color is nice too. Is it open? No, it's closed, right? And since we talked about unicorns like the Pointer GTI, the Nivus of the 90s, right? The profile here is pretty similar. I say that Pavoni was inspired by the Pointer to make the Nivus. Yeah, this is a Parati GTI, 16 valves, 2 doors. How do I know it's 16 valves? Because it has the dreaded bulge on the hood here. It had an Audi 16-valve cylinder head, right? It didn't fit under the Golbolinha's hood, so they had to put the bulge there. I confess that I had never seen this car in my life. I don't remember seeing this car out on the streets. Of course it existed, right? But there were very limited numbers. I think that little red part on the gear knob and the steering wheel isn't original. But what a beautiful thing, what a lovely little thing. With the GTI, you can take a little look first here so you can see plaid seats, right? The GTI must have plaid seats. It's always the best option. Not only do you save money, but you also get the real deal. I'll tell you guys, I'm in love with this car, right? Yeah, really, what I'm missing is money. If they had imported more and Volkswagen priced it at about $330, it would have definitely ended up in my garage.